So for the next 45 minutes, we are going to hear 3 pitches within our total energy category. We're going to start with 3 back-to-back 5-minute presentations of the pitches, and then we'll open it up for a live Q&A with the presenter. So the first pitch are sort of 2 pieces of potentially foundational research that could really go a long way in making sure that our action going forward is well informed. So the first is on mapping diversity, equity, inclusion in Vermont's energy sector, and the second is on public sector spending and climate change. And those will be presented by Kelly Lucci of Efficiency Vermont and Dan Quinlan of SolaVida. Then we're going to hear a regenerative workforce housing development plan from Alison and Nicole Gratton. I see I have a typo on my slide from the Northeastern Vermont Development Association. And lastly, we're going to hear Renew Vermont, a movement for a just and equitable future from Kiah and Kate Logan at Rights and Democracy. Once again, we'll be using Slido for the Q&A. And so as we go through the pitches, you can go ahead and put in your questions as they go. So remember to go to slido.com. Ideally on another device, so you're not having to toggle back and forth too much between 2 screens, to enter the event code EAN Summit 2020 and type in your questions, or keep an eye on other folks' questions, and again, do that upvoting. So now I'm going to invite Kelly Lucci and Dan Quinlan onto the stage. Thanks for your patience with us in case we have any glitches as they get on. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you better since you made that little adjustment.
Thank you. All right, I'm just going to attempt to share my screen and get us kicked off here.
Okay, and hopefully Jan will join you shortly.
Great. Is that coming up?
Yep.
Perfect. Hi, Dan. All right, so I'm going to kick us off. I've actually got the slide shared, so Dan, you can tell me when to advance on yours, but I'll kick off with mine. I'm Kelly Lucci with Efficiency Vermont, and I'm here to share an overview of a research project we're excited to be moving forward and invite your feedback and participation as EAN network members. So many of you are likely familiar with the Vermont Energy Burden Report we published last year. You may not be aware of some of the changes it has helped drive across many of Efficiency Vermont's programs and services. And I wanted to share one example of that that's really powerful for me. So the data told us that thermal energy burdens are especially high. In acting on that, we introduced an enhanced weatherization incentive geared towards low and moderate income customers. Those with area median incomes below 100, those with median incomes below 120% area median income. Over the last 18 months, since we introduced that enhanced incentive, you can see we've seen a near doubling of participation rates in our weatherization programs for those customers, which has been really striking. So data truly can drive lasting change very quickly. And now we want to understand what more can we do to make sure our programs are truly meeting the needs of all Vermonters. So just grounding, other energy programs have conducted diversity, equity, and inclusion analyses, such as what we're talking about today. And just some of the things that they've learned. In Massachusetts, they looked into participation in their programs and learned that it was significantly lower in less affluent communities, communities that had more racial diversity, and especially in communities where there was a high proportion of renters. In Oregon, they conducted a similar analysis and found lower participation rates in rural regions and especially in Native American communities. So the question we ask is, are Vermont's energy programs truly serving all Vermonters? And not only can we learn the answer to that question, but what change can we drive to ensure equitable distribution of our energy program resources? So from now through the end of this year, Efficiency Vermont will map participation in our programs. Simultaneously, we'll be working to remove barriers to participation and hold ourselves publicly accountable for making changes and investments to drive lasting improvements. We would love to partner with other EAN network members to look at participation across Vermont's entire clean energy sector. Here are some of the ways that we invite you to collaborate with us. You can share and analyze your data using our methodology. You can also help us hone the methodology that we're applying, make sure that it's truly going to capture the lived experience of the Vermonters we're trying to better understand and better serve. And you can also review the results and help us get feedback to make sure that we do this project right. So we're really excited to learn, invest, and take action together in driving equity across Vermont's energy sector. Right. Dan, you're up.
Over to me.
That's right.
All right. Hello, everyone. First of all, most important thing I'm going to say, I think today, is what a privilege it is to be part of this community in Vermont, and what we're all taking on. It's really a privilege, and I think a model for across the country. All right, let's jump in. Not much time. First piece of news is the one we've already come up a few times here about the Global Warming Solutions Act passing, which we're all very excited about. Next slide, please, Kelly. A few days after that, there was another equally big piece of news, but not in Vermont. It was in Portugal, where a young woman, very brave young woman, perhaps a bit crazy, surfed a 73-foot wave, the largest wave surfed by anybody in 2020. So what's the connection between these two? Well, we're gonna jump into that. Next slide. If you're a big wave surfer, you need a tow-in jet ski. So these folks bring you in, they get you rolling. You got to be hit the wave at the exact right angle, the exact right speed, to get you going, and to to survive the wave and make it a positive experience. So, next slide, please. With respect to the Global Warming Solutions Act and the other work that we want to do, how do we get going? Well, a place we need to start at is, what are we doing today? So this summer, with a wonderful student from the UNH Sustainability Institute, we did a project and we tried to look at that. And we found, with respect to clean energy and climate change, there are about 115 programs that are going on that are state run in some way, funded in a variety of different ways, with federal money, taxpayer dollars, et cetera. And you can see in the activity categories here, we bunched everything into 7 categories. And they include things like finance and transportation and land management and agriculture. And underneath that, what we try to do is very quickly, on this preliminary analysis, where can we tell we're clearly underspending? And the 2 areas that pop out are economic development and public health. Next slide, please. So what this pitch is about is we want to take that very high-speed project, we did this in about 8 weeks, and blow it into a bigger project. What we'd like to be able to do is go look and really understand what these activities are. We'd like to know what the budgets are underneath. Sometimes it's very simple to get those numbers. In other places, we're going to have to do some interesting modeling. And then we want to be able to break it into, what are we spending on mitigation? What are we spending on adaptation? And then most importantly, where are we underspending across the board? So the goal is, next slide, please, that next year there's going to be another headline, and it says Vermont leads the nation in creating the first type of analysis of this that I've just described here. As far as Jake and I know, the student who worked with me, no one else in the country has done this. So we're looking forward to talking to you about this idea. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly and Dan. Our next pitch is from the Northeastern Vermont Development Association, and they pre-recorded it. So I'll be sharing that video.
Regenerative housing is smart growth development that's net positive, equitable, and affordable. Our pilot project proposes to create a collaborative approach to regenerative housing development that can be replicated despite market constraints. While housing and energy prices continue to climb statewide, the 3-county region known as Vermont's Northeast Kingdom faces significant challenges of its own. Median income in the region is the lowest in the state. The high cost of construction materials and labor put market rate housing out of reach for many. The region also has few housing options. More than 3/4 of the housing stock are single-unit detached homes, with more than half having 3 or more bedrooms. Of the dozen communities most burdened by energy in the state, the majority are located in the Northeast Kingdom. Households here spend 15 to 20% of their incomes on energy for heating, cooling, and transportation. Additionally, the region's existing housing stock is some of the oldest in the state. Please note the red arrows on the chart identifying the 3 Northeast Kingdom counties in comparison to the rest of the counties in the state and the whole United States. Nearly a third of owner-occupied homes are built before 1940. Most of these units are concentrated in traditional centers of development. Although these units are priced lower, their deferred maintenance and energy inefficiency are ultimately more costly and less sustainable for homeowners. As a result of aging housing stock, homeowners may not be able to access home equity loans for weatherization and energy upgrades, as low home appraisal values can prevent homeowners from using home equity as collateral. The remote location of the Northeast Kingdom from any metropolitan area drives up transportation energy costs as well. Low density and large distances make it challenging to coordinate public transportation networks. Those same large distances, along with the mountainous landscape, make active transportation options challenging as well. From the perspective of utility companies, the low population density in the Northeast Kingdom makes it less cost-effective to inform customers, drive to homes, and install energy-efficient or clean energy technologies. Auto dependence reinforces our scattered rural residential development patterns. Jobs are relatively scarce here. Census data shows that the Northeast Kingdom counties have the state's highest percentages of residents who travel greater than 50 miles in one direction to their places of work. With these challenges in mind, we need to close the gap on housing from multiple standpoints. First, there is a need for housing units that are affordable for residents of the Northeast Kingdom. This means multiple housing options for about $200,000 or less. Second, existing and new housing needs to be more energy efficient. We push it further to say new housing should be net positive. With increased efficiency and nearly no reliance on fossil fuels, we can reduce our carbon footprint and be more environmentally friendly. Third, we need to relieve energy burden. Housing that is priced affordably and built efficiently will lower costs and provide greater financial stability to homeowners and renters. So how do we do all this? Our process will deploy a multidisciplinary core team to engage with the community selected through a competitive RFP solicitation. A site-specific charrette will engage the multiple stakeholders involved with the project. From the data collected, a site-specific development plan will be created, complete with conceptual drawings, a framework for funding, and a cash flow analysis. While regenerative housing is in itself innovative, what elevates our pitch is the importance of making the development affordable and efficient so that energy equity can be achieved. At the third stage in the process, plan development, a framework for funding will be included to ensure that the price per unit is not out of reach of the workforce. The development plan will be aligned with grants, subsidies, and incentives to bring the overall development cost down and require that this cost savings be passed on to the future residents. This is a vital part of the plan's success. The collaborative process will establish a model approach to development that can be replicated in multiple settings in the following years. While the initial project will focus on new development, subsequent years can shift to focus on renovations, rental rehabilitations, or the adaptive reuse of commercial spaces. We know what we need in housing. Affordability is central. People of many ages are seeking out smaller homes. There is a need for missing middle housing in walkable downtown and village center locations. Broadband connection is of increasing importance as remote working and schooling become our new normal. And universal design principles apply to all ages and stages of life. We also know how housing should be built to ensure efficiency and energy equity. Smaller sizes, super insulated envelopes, a foundation with less concrete, high efficiency heating and cooling, be PV ready, EV charging on site, use local materials, and locate in existing cores where infrastructure is already established. By supporting this pitch, we can take all that we have learned and will continue to learn about regenerative housing to address energy equity in the Northeast Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm now going to invite Kiah Morris and Kate Logan from Rights and Democracy to the stage.
Perfect. Hello, all. Good afternoon. We'll get the slide deck rolling for you in just 1 second. So really excited to be able to meet with you all today. My name is Kiah Morris, and I am the Movement Politics Director for Rights and Democracy Vermont. We're going to go ahead and present the slideshow. Please let us know if you need anything. So I am joined here today with Kate Logan, who is our Director of Policy and Programming. Rights and Democracy covers both Vermont and New Hampshire, and Kate covers both, while I cover Vermont. So we're excited to be able to talk to you about building a movement for a just and equitable future. So we need to begin first, though, with a land acknowledgement. Rights and Democracy is located on the land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among Indigenous peoples for thousands of years, and is the home of the Western Abenaki people. Rights and Democracy honors, recognizes, and respects these peoples, especially the Abenaki, as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which we gather today. In that spirit, today we will begin by acknowledging that we are guests in this land. We need to respect and help protect the lands within our use. So we're here today to kind of address some of the blind spots that are currently within environmental justice. What we've recognized, and there's plenty of data to show this, as well as more than enough anecdotal responses to show that environmental justice is not currently centered in racial justice and in meaningful reparations for impacted communities. Direct benefits that may help and lift up BIPOC communities are aspirational at best. BIPOC communities are not currently highly visible nor in leadership within the Vermont climate movement. BIPOC labor within the climate movement still works in many functions to service white constituencies because of the nature of white supremacy. And that BIPOC are the least contributors to the climate and energy crisis, yet are the constant bearers of the deadly associated harms. We see this in energy justice as well. The American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy shows that nationwide, the median energy burden for Black households is 43% higher than that of white non-Hispanic households. That energy burden for Native American households is 45% higher than that of white non-Hispanic households. And within Hispanic households, we're still looking at 20% higher than that of white non-Hispanic households. So what we are trying to do within our work is create a hopeful approach to collective liberation. And this quote says it very well. If you've come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. And this is where we think about what we need to change. BIPOC communities know what we need to be made whole from the climate and energy crisis, and we should be leading those efforts from design to implementation. Any solutions that are proposed should be driven by the hopes, the needs, dreams, and demands of those most impacted. BIPOC should also be compensated for their labor within this work, which is essential, but also deeply extractive. And Vermont's efforts should amplify current efforts that are currently being led by those communities to address these multiple crises. So I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague, Kate Logan, to talk with you about our exciting project within the Renew New England and Renew New England Alliance initiative.
Okay, can you all hear me? Great. Thanks so much, Kiah. And now I'll introduce you to an exciting new regional collaboration that started its work together in January of 2020. Rights and Democracy was the founding member of the Alliance for New Hampshire and Vermont. The Renew New England Alliance is a formation of over 40 social and economic justice, labor, and indigenous organizations from each state in New England. We have technical support from Brown University Climate and Development Lab, Stockholm Environment Institute, and others. We began our collaboration with a regional decarbonization modeling process that is centered in commitments to equity and justice. Here in Vermont, the Vermont Renew Alliance includes Rights and Democracy and our partners such as Vermont AFL-CIO, the Nulhegan Band of the Cossack Abenaki Nation, Migrant Justice, Vermont Organic Farmers, individual researchers and their students at the University of Vermont, and others. Many of us are also members of an informal climate coalition that is convened by VPIRG and VNRC, the group of advocates that was working hard on the Global Warming Solutions Act. And finally, we have an established cohort of elected officials who are committed to the Renew platform goals. The goals of the Alliance platform are to, through regional strategic coordination, develop thriving, equitable, and sustainable local economies that center the priorities of workers and frontline communities. We plan to achieve a zero carbon regional energy sector by 2030, zero carbon regional building and transportation sectors by 2040, and enact reforms that make government inclusive of and accountable to the impacted communities that it serves. The core of the Alliance platform is a jobs guarantee. Everyone who wants a job will have one, and in order to do that, we must preserve and create jobs, especially unionized jobs, support the development of local and small business, create new public employment initiatives, and all with core commitments guiding the creation of jobs that are to improve and modernize our regional infrastructure and ensure that everyone's basic human needs are met. The Job Guarantee Program will be centered in 6 basic human needs: housing, healthcare, food, energy, transportation, and clean air and water. And additionally, the platform includes public policy mechanisms for the program's financing.
So thank you. Oh, go ahead, Kate.
Are you going to do the slide or am I?
Whichever. No, go right ahead.
Okay, to summarize, the Renew New England Alliance platform will use several strategies to enact our regional plan over the next several years: policy and regulatory reform, public engagement, initiating or expanding new workforce development and retraining programs, and capital mobilization. And once again, the core commitments for the Jobs Guarantee are to improve and modernize our regional infrastructure and ensure that everyone's basic human needs are met. And now I will pass it back to Kiah.
Thank you. Always fun to do these things online. So our ask is essentially we're looking at funding to establish a fairly compensated, BIPOC-centered policy advisory committee that will build a pathway to increased access to power, to representation, and to restorative processes. So this is going to help remove some of the structural barriers that keep folks from impacted communities from full participation. The committee itself will be led by and accountable to those most impacted by our overlapping crises. And this is actually an approach that purports an opportunity to build collective liberation in a novel way for Vermont. And we should lead on these efforts. I want to thank you all for your time. On behalf of Rights and Democracy, we're excited to be able to come into community with you and invite you into this work. Together, we will win. Thank you.